And welcome to another edition of the Razorback Diamond Report with Dudley Dawson. I'm your host, Jason Pattyson, here on hogville.net YouTube Live. Um, I have to do this. It reminds me of Wayne and Garth. I am not worthy. I am not worthy for the newly minted inducted Hall of Fame inductee from the hailing from the Newport Greyhounds, Dudley Dawson. Man, how are you doing?
I'm doing great. It was a great honor last night to be inducted in with three other great guys. One who's played NFL football, another two who have done a great job in being ambassadors for Newport, and I hope that's kind of what I was. I was a pretty good athlete, and
Mhm.
I write a lot, but I've always been proud to be from Newport, and it's truly one of the honors of my life. And also, it was a great time to go down to Newport because the air conditioning is out here at the Dawson household. So
Ooh,
we're just
ouch.
getting by here. Hopefully, we'll get that fixed for too long. But it was a great deal. The only sad part, obviously, and I'm sure we'll talk about this later, was my best friend there, Charles Valentine, passed away.
Yes.
Uh, and we're going to have his funeral tomorrow. And he was supposed to give my induction speech as I gave his several years ago, but was able to fight through some emotion and get through it, and I might have cussed at the end.
Hey, I,
But I am truly damn proud to be a Newport Greyhound, and that's how I ended it. And it was an exciting time, and I'm very honored.
yeah, I feel you there. I had lost in the family ourselves here recently too, and I, I best friends are family. They're the family we choose, not the ones that are chosen for us. And they just sometimes they just mean more to you. And when you have a best friend like Charles, they mean the world to you.
And for the longest time, my kids, uh, when they were young, thought Charles was actually my brother and their uncle, and I take great pride in that. I'd like to think that Charles and I did a lot for Newport in terms of bringing it together a little bit, and just happy as I'll get at as I can be to have called him a friend. And I'm going to miss him, and there's going to be some tough days, but. What he would want me to do is take care of my business, and that's because that's what he did, and we'll always have the shot.
Man, always, always. We'll talk a little bit more about Charles here in just a little bit towards the end of the show. Uh, so let's get down to business for just a second. Had wide receivers in the room yesterday and had defensive line in the room today. Uh, you had some great stories on kind of what these guys are excited about going into fall camp, the scheme that Woodson and Williams have got on board for them, and also with Kenny Guyton and bringing these new guys along too. Kind of talk about just a little bit about what you were writing this last couple of days.
Well, I got a chance obviously to go out and watch practice. Was very excited about seeing the new guys. I say this every year, uh, but I mean it every year, and
Mhm.
certainly since Chad Morris became coach, and tried to redesign the football team into a slim, fast one. Uh, this group of guys looks more like an SEC football team than they have in the past. Now they look
Yes.
really good against each other. We'll see how it plays itself out. I've been fooled before watching them go against each other. Uh, but it really does look like a good football team, like a football team that when Coach Pittman got here, the one he envisioned. It certainly wasn't what was left him, but the one he envisioned. There are some big guys out there. There's some big guys that can move. There are a few injuries going on,
Mm-hmm.
but there is depth at places that there was not last year. And we go back to this having 40 new players on the roster, which is just unprecedented. But the NCAA
Yeah.
allowed them to do that to get back, allowed teams to get back to the 85 scholarship limit. And it's just one of those things that, it's, you can say they're going to be 7-5, you can say they're going to be 10-2, but
Yep.
that's all a guess from everybody. It would be a guess from the coaches. I think it's a guess from the fans. Certainly a guess from the media, whose track record has not been great in predictions, and things. It's just we'll see how it comes together. Not many injuries so far. That's good. A few on the
Yep.
defensive line. The wide receivers have stayed healthy. The quarterbacks have stayed healthy. The offensive line seems like it's got some great battles going on. So, I think there's a lot of excitement. A little over 2 weeks away.
Yeah, it's right around the corner. Also, comment and throw any information you guys want us to put on the board here, and we'll make sure we get to those comments too. And yeah, with 0 week coming up pretty quickly, Arkansas just put the pads on yesterday, and when you know that you hear that thud, you hear that pop, that gets me excited. That gets me rejuvenated, not just internally, but externally saying, hey, I got lots of energy that we're going to get as much work done as we can. We want to provide as much, information to the fans that we can get in that small period of time that we go and we see practice. They've got a scrimmage tomorrow that is closed.
Mm-hmm.
But anything that we get out of the press conference afterwards, we'll make sure that everybody gets all that we get that information out to everybody. So seeing the running backs for just a second, what I've noticed is that there's a certain difference in freshmen that just came in with versus like a Dominic Johnson or a Rocket Sanders versus an AJ Green. This back room kind of reminds me of what Houston Nutt had back in 07.
Yeah, and I'll even go back a little farther to Lou Holtz back when he had, such a great backfield. It's one of those things that I think without a doubt, it is the deepest room and the deepest position on the football team. There are guys there that have had big time games. One of them, you forget that Rocket Sanders had 1,400 yards last year. You knew he was good, but that's a haul, and that was without getting many yards in the bowl. Obviously, after getting hurt. AJ Green, Rashad Dominion, so many others. Dominic Johnson coming back. He's at 252 now. That is just a great area of the football team that the running backs coach is happy to be the running backs coach at the University of Arkansas right now. Jimmy Smith.
I'll tell you, him and also Dan Enos, he's got to be licking his chops a little bit at least, because he knows that he's got those guys he can count on in that running back room that will be able to offset the passing game, and he can do that 50-50 split, throughout the game as far as play calls go to keep that defense off balance. Not only that, you've got depth at quarterback that you haven't had in recent memory. And from what I've been able to tell, from what I've seen also on the practice field, there's not a lot of drop off from AJ to Jacoby.
Yeah, and you certainly have a lot more experience at that position than you had going into last year. I think everybody forgets about Cade Fortin still being around, and maybe his one game that he started, didn't go very well, but he's looked really good out there. As you mentioned, Jacoby Criswell, I think after getting out of North Carolina, has really upped his game. I think this is where he always wanted to be, but Chad Morris and the future starting quarterback at TCU, Chandler Morris, that was kind of in the way, but things have worked themselves out the way it's supposed to. He's done a great job. And then you hear and see great things from Malachi Singleton. I don't know how much time he's going to get this year. If Arkansas is really good and they've got the opportunity to get some snaps to some other players, that having that 4 games where you can play 4 games and not have to still get to keep your red shirt, I think you'll see some mixing and going in there, everybody getting some experience. But you look at those guys, and there's even more out there that you've got to feel much better than, and you do. Don't get me wrong, you do not want you do not want KJ to go down, and not in any way, shape, or form. He's the best quarterback. That's why he's the starter. That's why he's ranked so high in SEC rankings and nationally and all that. But if he does go down, it's not going to be a cluster as it was last year with a couple of quarterbacks who maybe weren't ready for that stage. Not maybe weren't.
Yeah, they weren't. They weren't. Speaking of not ready for that stage, Otis and I kind of talked a little bit about AJ Braithwaite has left the team. I think he kind of saw what the pecking order was on the depth chart and
Got out
kind
here
of read
before
the
school
writing on the
started.
wall.
That's got out here before school started. That's key for him, to be able to
Yep.
get to wherever else he ends up going. But we ended up with one of the things that I would say Josh Street, the offensive lineman from Bentonville, now
Yeah.
has that scholarship. He was awarded that scholarship. He's in the mix there at offensive line, and I know we'll talk about that later on. But that's good to see. The walk-on program. If you're using too many of them, it's not very good. But if you don't get highly regarded ones, they're not going to push the guys who are getting all the playing time and able to get better. You're just staying still if you're not getting pushed.
Yeah, and you see a guy like Josh Street get that red shirt or the not the red shirt, the scholarship, and he keeps pushing. That's where iron sharpens iron. And whenever I was out watching the offensive line, man, I'm telling you what, it was the size that I haven't seen in quite a long time. And that I'm not talking the starting five, I'm talking from A to Z. And Cody Kennedy, it's making his life a lot easier with the talent that he has in that room too. And one of the bright spots that I continue to hear is Patrick Kudus. Keeps pushing, keeps pushing. It looks like he is going to get possibly a start. And I know that Sam's talked about it depth chart wise, it changes from day 1 to day 2 to day 3. But he's got some consistency now in that offensive line going into camp that you're starting to peel off one of those question marks.
Yeah, and Otis has done some great reporting, and obviously Coach Pittman talked today about the offensive line and the fact that there are so many candidates for that spot, and you're going to end up going with 7 or 8, as you get down there. But they're having trouble narrowing it down to those 7 and 8, and the reason that is because they're all performing really well. You mentioned Patrick Kudus; he is your utility guy. Not that he's going to not start, not that he's going to be a guy that comes up. He's a guy that can play several different positions. You need that on a football team. Arkansas's had that in the past. As you said, they've got some great size. But what I would tell you also is not only with that size is athleticism. And Ben Zouders has done a great job at redefining a lot of bodies all over the football team, but especially on the offensive line. I mean, you had guys that were 370, a couple guys that were 370 who are now down in 320 to 340 range, which still sounds like a lot, but when you're 6'7", 6'9", then it's you can carry that weight. You don't need to carry 370. But they've done a great job in getting that line redefined. I think that the offensive line that was here the last couple of years really did an adequate job, but I think somewhere along the way they got to their ceiling and the cohesiveness wasn't as good as it could be, and they got scouted so well from other SEC teams that they were not to be able to be as successful as they had been in the past. If you see a kid or see an offensive lineman over and over, you get an idea of what's going on there. And with this new bunch, again, don't have that experience. I am not saying I'm going to step out there and be, some big time deal right away. I do think the schedule helps ease them into it, and I think that they have a chance to build that continuity. And with that size and athleticism, I think their ceiling, even though several of these guys that were on last year's offensive lineman are playing NFL football or are going to play NFL football, at least be on squads, I do believe the ceiling's higher than it has been. And we'll see if I'm wrong, but that's just what I see. And from watching them, not only from being out at practice, but from watching them, really some of these guys from the 9th to 10th grade on. I mean, I saw Marion Harris's first start when he was a 9th grader at Springdale, and he seemed ready to play college football right then. Had that size, and now he's bigger, stronger. He's redefined the body. I've been watching these guys a long time, and you can lose yourself in the moment at times, and you have to be careful about doing that. But when I look at them as a group and I look at the potential, then I think that something special could happen there.
Most definitely. And a name that keeps kind of coming back to mind with me with Patrick Kudus is Frank Ragno. Kind of that utility, Swiss Army knife type guy that can go inside, outside, center, whatever you need him to do. That he's going to be that guy that can do it. And Sam also talked about not making sure that whenever you're having to replace a guy, it's a 1-for-1 and not a 2-for-1. And I think that that depth at this point, it's there. They just really, they've got to get through game one to find out exactly where they are at.
Yeah, I agree with you totally. You can go against each other and you can feel good about it. You can watch a lot of tape, but until you're in the moment and there aren't whistles blown after 6 seconds, after a play, and you don't want to get your quarterback hit, and there was whistles blown and all that. When it's live, helmet on helmet, 11 on 11 football, and it's go time, that's invaluable experience that these young guys are going to get. This offensive line is going to get, and it's one of those things that you can look great in practice, and practice is so important. Repetition is so important, but you got to face live bullets sometimes, and live bullets are what they're about to get.
Most definitely. One of the question marks going into fall camp last week was a wide receiver group. And that wide receiver group, I honestly feel like that question mark, that thing's been ripped off. The coaches have seen, I think, not everything that they want to see, but I think that they've seen enough already on the field to say, okay, I think we feel pretty comfortable about these guys.
Well, we go back to the live bullets thing. They certainly have looked good in practice. It is the tallest wide receiver crew that I ever remember as a combination here at Arkansas, and I've been watching football practice now for 42 years. Shows you how old I am, but 42 years been going out to practice, and this is the tallest offensive receivers that I've ever seen. I've been very impressed with their athleticism. You talk about the new guys coming in, but you've also got old guys ready to step up, be it Isaiah Satega, Jaden Wilson, Bryce Stevens, so many others, guys who got experience. And now you're bringing in guys who maybe didn't play at the SEC level, but played at a level of college football where they were very successful, and had the opportunity to listen to the quarterbacks a little bit, and they love the wide receivers. And this is not in a press conference setting, so they don't have to say it. I hear from that room and from them that they really think they have, again, something special. And again, I'm not blowing smoke. I'm talking about what they think. Now we'll see once they get into Western Carolina on September 2nd. We'll see what they got a little bit. You really won't know till usual. Maybe in the BYU game a little bit, but I don't think you'll really know for sure until you are at Dallas Cowboys AT&T Stadium and you're going up against A&M, and we see what you got there. I think that's and then obviously in October, that stretch is unbelievable. And the fact that you only have 2 home games from the end of September to like the end of October. There's 2 home games, like 10 dates there. That's unreal. In Fayetteville, that is.
Yeah, that is unreal. So let's kind of switch gears here for just a minute, and also with the actual title here of the Diamond Report. Dave Van Horn was had a Zoom, I think it was yesterday or the day before yesterday. Kind of go back to what he kind of said, kind of a little bit of information that he had he put out there for everybody.
Well, that happened on Wednesday, and the thing that you I think you have to take out of that more than anything is he was not desolate. He was not mad. He was not disappointed in what happened. He knew that he was going to lose a lot of players that were of the number 1 recruiting class in the country, and he did. 4 of those guys were drafted in the top 3 rounds, I guess it was. 7 guys drafted in the top, or 6 in the top 10 rounds, and you knew you were going to lose those with the amount of money they throw at them these days, since the draft is so condensed now into just 20 rounds, and they have the money to spend. So you know you were going to lose that guys, but he got a lot of pitchers through. That was one thing he talked about, and I'm telling you, they did a phenomenal job at getting into the transfer portal, getting what they needed. A couple of catchers, outfielders. Obviously, Wahoya Aloy, the Hawaiian shortstop, who, along with Nolan Souza, who's a high school kid that they have that played in Hawaii and played with the Arkansas Sticks, and Coach Brewster and his organization here, it is, they really loaded up, and I think got themselves to where they're going to be another quality baseball team. He would be disappointed, I think, if they don't make a run to the College World Series again. And he feels real good about what he's had to do in this day and age of the transfer portal, what he went in there and got. And, at the end, adding Jared Sprague, utility infielder, adding Mason Molina, who arguably was Texas Tech's ace last year and would be this year. You've got, if the starting weekend rotation is not Hagen Smith, Brady Taggart, and Mason Molina, it will be because one of these freshmen came out of nowhere, or one of the really the pitchers that they got in the transfer portal outside of Mason were more relief guys. Then somebody's going to have to really show out, because that weekend lineup, barring injuries, has three guys that could be. There won't be, and I shouldn't say that because injuries abound, and we know that happened last year. But if you can avoid injuries,
knock on wood,
avoid injuries, there'll be no. My dogs just thought that somebody was at the door. But if they can avoid injuries, that you won't have to do this mix and match thing, and we won't have to go into the Wednesday or Thursday press conference with Coach Van Horn and say, "Well, who do you think you might start this weekend?" Really, Hunter Holland was the only one that was consistent for the most part in getting those starts. You had guys coming out of the bullpen, guys in hybrid roles, different things going on. You should be better off. And I've already seen people complaining on Twitter and other places. Well, he said it was his deepest pitching staff last year, and he's already talking about how good pitching staff is going to be this year. It was a really deep pitching staff, but it got hit by injuries from the start. And so that was one of those things that, you can beat up on the man who's given you such a great litany of baseball teams that have had so much success. Arkansas is an elite program, doesn't have a national championship. But that's the only thing left. That's the only thing that hadn't been marked off the list.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it has. One thing that I do want to mention too is that Jackson Wiggins worked, and I mean he worked his situation to perfection. Maximized the dollar amount that he got, waited to the very last minute, and got everything that he should have got from the body of work that he's already produced.
Got to give him a lot of credit and his representatives a lot of credit for working that situation. I'm for being a Cardinal fan, even though we suck this year, and I now know what it's like to be a Cubs fan for 116 of the last 117 years. They are a much better team than we are this year. They've proven that on the field. But you got to love it when a kid you've covered takes them for the last penny. I mean, he should have. He was in a slot where he should have made 1.1 million, got it up over 1.4. I don't know about a lot of people here in Northwest Arkansas, but $300,000 extra dollars, $340,000 extra dollars. That's a nice little tip to put on the end of your contract. And so, they know the situation with him. They were fortunate enough to now have their strength and conditioning guy used to be here at Arkansas, Blake Kinsey, and you can now see that they've drafted. It would be great. If one day we saw Connor Nolan in that rotation, if we saw Jackson Wiggins in that rotation, if we saw Houston Franklin in center field, we saw Casey Opitz catching. I mean, it's been quite a run from them, and they've done a really good job. And their executives have talked a lot about the way Arkansas runs its program, like a professional program. They know what they're getting, the development center they have here, what all they go through. Again, this program, sometimes by its fans is given a little grief, but by professionals who do this for a living, by college baseball people, they've earned a great deal of respect. And that's why going into this next season, anything less than getting to the College World Series will be disappointing to the coaches, to the team, to the fans. And in one thing I wanted to add there, Bobby Wernis being elevated from
getting that
full-time assistant from a volunteer assistant. I mean, that's great. Finally, the NCAA does something right about college baseball in the depth of the coaching ranks and all that. He's going to be great on the recruiting trail for them.
Most definitely. And last thing that they need to get really worked out for that is the scholarships, making sure that baseball has the number of scholarships that they should have, not the ones that they think they might need. I really want to see that get turned around too.
A lot of people don't understand that most of the kids that you see playing baseball or have for the past couple of decades were walk-ons or got very little in scholarship money or academic money and all that. There have been some other states that have or the schools, Vanderbilt, LSU, some others that have been able to use some things to get them to be able to get some more talent. But the 11.7 scholarships is what you have for now. A roster you can have of 40 that the NCAA allows is just ridiculous. I am a big Title IX proponent, but somewhere along the way, somebody should have said, well, okay, we can do something here. So this third full-time assistant is a step in the right direction. They need to keep going.
Mm-hmm. Most definitely. I think once they reach that 40, I think that's where it needs to stay too. But so I do have to ask you one quick question. All those Arkansas kids make it to the majors. They stay with the Cubs for some. I know it's really tough whenever you're going through high A to triple A. Mixes and match pieces go everywhere, it seems like, in minor league baseball. But do you see yourself watching more Cubs games than Cardinals games with more Arkansas players on that roster?
Here's two things I would say about that. The eventual question is no. I mean, the eventual answer is no, because I'm a Cardinal fan. I watch Cardinal games all the time, but I do watch a heck of a lot of Cubs games. I like their team much better than I did back in the day. I think they've got some bright young stars. I think that their management has done a really, really good job at turning things around, certainly better than my organization has. I will root for Connor Nolan. I will root for Jackson Wiggins. I will root for Christian Franklin, Casey Opitz, and all that. But will I ever turn into a Chicago Cubs fan? Please.
I had to pose the question.
I'm about to be 60 years old at the end of this month, and I've had one baseball team my entire life, one football team my entire life, one basketball team my entire life. That's how it's going to stay.
So speaking of minor league baseball, real quick, Kaden Wallace was elevated from Columbus to the Northwest Arkansas Naturals. You've seen kind of a little bit of an uptick in the press coverage of the Naturals, and I think you're going to start to see a little bit more of an uptick in ticket sales too, which I'm sure the Naturals are just loving at this point. It's really nice that you're able to see that kid that from Greenbrier that comes back to Springdale and is able to don that professional jersey and say, hey, you know what? I made it. Everybody else can too.
Yeah, and obviously I've had a lot going on with Charles's passing and the funeral and all that, but I intend in this next week to get out and watch Kaden play and get an interview with him, and they've got a great organization out there at Northwest Arkansas Naturals. I always have been very. I got a lot of respect for the way they handle their business, both in the community and on the baseball field. At times, they've had really great teams. Times teams that have struggled, but you watch these guys. I mean, I know they're having an MJ Melendez T-shirt night sometime next week, and I might have been to a Thirsty Thursday once or twice. But I think it's a great organization. But they will benefit with Kaden being there and any other athletes that have Arkansas ties that come through there, or even SEC ties. Arkansas baseball fans are so knowledgeable about other teams that their team plays that they love to see it. Now, I admit that when most of my Northwest Arkansas Natural games have to do with Mason Wynn and guys like that coming through when Springfield plays there. But again, I just think it's a wonderful opportunity for Arkansas baseball fans during a time when their team is not playing to go out there. And I know that I understand from some of my sports writing buddies that who have already been out there that when he comes to bat, the hog call starts. And I'm sure that some of those players on both of those teams wonder what in the world that is. But that's what that is that's truly a fan base calling its Razorback home.
Most definitely. So, just for a moment, and we talked a little bit about this. I want to give you the floor for just a second because your best friend Charles Valentine passed away last week. He's known for the shot against Michael Jordan back in 1982 in Pine Bluff, and not only was he an ambassador for Newport, for the University of Arkansas, he was an ambassador for the entire state. And when you have an athlete that we don't really consider an athlete, we consider one of our family. And for a lot of people, that's who Charles was.
What I would say is that the University of Arkansas fan base knows Charles for the shot. I've known him since the 4th grade. I met him and my wife Petra on the same day. Once I actually grew up in Balch, Arkansas, which is a farming community, and we had a small elementary school out there for 1 through 3. Grades 1 through 3, and then in the 4th grade you got to come to the big city of Newport. So the first day in the 4th grade, I met Charles Valentine. As you said, he went on to become my lifelong best friend. I met Petra, who ended up being my high school sweetheart, and now is my wife. And so that was a pretty good day for me in the 4th grade. But Charles and I have remained close every day since then. He was a very good to great basketball player. He hit an unbelievable shot. I've always taken a little credit for it because I threw him 4 million passes from the 4th grade on, till the time he got up here. And I was a manager up here when he was a basketball player. At one point, I thought that Coach Sutton was offering me the point guard spot, not a manager spot. But I got over that, But he hit a great shot. But what I would tell you about him is that. And I no disrespect to anybody else. There's so many guys who've been in my life that I give much respect to. But Charles Valentine is the best man that I've ever met, and that is how we lived our life, making each other accountable. And I can be a good dude at times. But I have a tendency to get mad and fired up every once in a while. He always remained an even keel, even if he was mad at somebody. He would get down on their level, talk to them, and all that. So that's the best thing I can say about Charles. I am giving the eulogy at his funeral tomorrow. It's going to be tough on me, but I know that's what he wanted, and I'm going to get up and I might say one thing about the shot, but I'm going to talk about Charles the person, Charles the ambassador for the University of Arkansas, and certainly my fellow Newport Hall of Fame honoree, Charles Valentine.
Most definitely. Now, I do have to ask you this. Is there a story that we might have never heard that just one of those feel-good stories you got about Charles that you want to share at all?
I'll give you two. The Charles, as I said, when I mentioned he would get down on the level. One of our classmates was in a situation where she saw Charles at Walmart, and her daughter wanted to meet him and wanted to say something to him. And Charles, being 6'6", he'll tell you 6'7", but he was 6'6". It's like I was listed as 5'11" in high school. I'm 5'9", have always been. But he got down on his knees, all 6'6" of him, to I believe the little girl was 3-year-old or something like that. And our classmate thanked him for doing that and said, "Oh, that means so much to her." And he said, "I want her to know that he wanted to get down on her level, so that young girl would know that he was listening to her, that he was paying attention to her." Mm-hmm. Those are the aspects that he did that, whether you were 3 years old, 100 years old. There's so many stories out there about Charles helping people out that he didn't want the attention for. I'm a social media guy. Charles had absolutely no use for it. You would have to tell him something that happened on Twitter or Facebook or whatever, because he was never looking at it. That just wasn't his deal. The second thing I would tell you about him is Charles was not going to go to the University of Arkansas. He was going to go to St. Louis University because Arkansas had not offered him. And they offered Keith Lee first, and then Keith Lee came up here and decided he wasn't going to go, and came down. And it looked for a while like Arkansas. I mean, Arkansas wasn't going to offer, and in Harding, we were going to end up at Harding. I was going to play basketball and football there. He was going to play basketball, but Coach Counts and Coach Sutton, Coach Jimmy Counts, who's went on to be a respected doctor, and obviously Coach Sutton offered to allow me to come to the University of Arkansas if I could get him to come. So I followed him around in school that day to every class, because back then you didn't move as a group, in all those classes. And he told me he wasn't going to Arkansas. And I said, yes, you are. They've offered me a scholarship too. And again, I didn't know it was a manager point. So yes, we are going to Arkansas. But the teachers at the Newport allowed me to do that. We ended up coming up here. And my biggest argument to him was that if you get up here and it doesn't work out, that somebody from Walmart will hire you in a managerial position and you'll be set the rest of your life. Well, when I came up here, hit the shot, did great. Was drafted by the Sacramento Kings, went to camp with them, but didn't make their regular season roster. That man came back and worked for Walmart, and then some various other entities in management, and just the level of pride and hard work that he put in to being the guy that hit that shot. He put into being both a great person and a great worker. And there are very few people that have ever had a bad thing to say about Charles. That tells you the kind of man he was. If they did, I took care of it. I got kicked out of that game. That was the difference in us. He was always calm and collected. I'm not so much. And but just a fantastic person, and that's the thing I try to stress the most. Yes, he hit the shot. Yes, he made himself a great basketball player. But he's a great person, and that's why tomorrow at the church, at Mount Comfort Church in Fayetteville, we are going to honor Charles Valentine the person, not Charles Valentine the shot.
Most definitely, yeah, and that's. Those are two great stories, Dudley, and I really appreciate that, because I know that there's been a lot of media coverage over the last week or so, but when it comes from somebody that knew him as the person and not the player or the bigger than life figure that you see on TV, it means a lot more, and it really hits different, and I appreciate that, and thank you.
One last thing I want to say is I cannot tell you how much I appreciate you, Otis, John P. James, Lanny Beavers, everybody that's helped me through this, taking care of some stories and that stuff for me. I'm going to try to get back into a regular role next week, and because writing the obituary for your friend is tough.
Yeah.
Writing about Arkansas beating Croatia 124-12
that was crazy.
Division basketball game. That's natural. That's the routine. That's what I'm going to try to get back to next week. But I appreciate you. Appreciate all the people who who are our readers on Hogville being patient with me. I'm coming back, but it was a tough week. But life goes on, and that's what Charles would want all of us to do. And when you go to sleep, now I'm going to say this tomorrow. When you go to sleep, make sure you've told the person, your family, your friends, make sure your last conversation with them was to tell them that you love them. I have a friend named Ed Jones, whose birthday is tomorrow. The late Ed Jones, Waterhead Ed.
Yep.
Yeah, his birthday tomorrow. He would have been 63, and we're taking care of Charles's funeral and stuff. Don't go to sleep tonight without telling your parents, your kids, your friends that you you love them because you might not ever get the chance to do it again. I'm fortunately, the last 2 conversations I had with Charles, really every conversation I had with Charles, we ended the phone call or the thing with a hug and I love you. And you just never know, guys. So take care of yourself, take care of your families, and just thanks everybody for the support that's been given Charles's family, his wife, and myself and all of our family.
Most definitely. Well, Dudley, thank you for opening up on that part, and it hits hard, and appreciate it, and thank you also for the well wishes too. And let's get you out of here on the good note. So I did this with Otis last week. I'm going to ask you really quick, and I'm going to ask you to prognosticate just a little bit. Do you have from? And it may be fair to ask you this next week, but what's the final record that you could that you might save preseason wise? What you could give Arkansas going into the season, even with the toss-up games and how important they were going to be.
This is not my prediction. Let me be very clear about that, because when it goes wrong, somebody will come back and say Dudley said they were going to be 10-2, or Dudley said they're going to be 6-6.
Yeah,
it is my thought, after doing a lot of research on these guys, that they're new guys here, that where I think they are as a coaching staff. I think maybe the 2 biggest additions to the team are Travis Williams and Coach Woodson. I think that they brought a great bit of energy. The tight end coach, they've done a great job at revitalizing the staff. I'm sitting here today thinking 8-4. I'm hesitant on that because as you looked at that October's just killer.
It is.
Hey, Jason.
It is.
Love you, bud.
Love you too, man. All right, Dudley. All right, for Dudley Dawson, I'm your host, Jason Pattyson, and thank you for you all jumping on here on hogville.net YouTube Live.